I'll call the November meeting to order. If you would, please stand with me, and Councilwoman Robertson will do our invocation.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the community that we live in. We thank you for people that reside in our communities. We ask your blessings upon our community. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Please still stand and help me with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. The mayor is still out, so please keep him in your prayers. I'm going to pitch it again for him tonight. Thank you for being here. We will start with approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, you all have an amended agenda at your seats, and you will see that a closed session has been added. It should be brief, but it has been added.
Okay. Hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. I'll ask Brian to come up, and we'll start with parcel 85713 annexation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, council members, always a pleasure. So as you just stated, we do have an annexation petition in front of you tonight. So the quick site data, it's out on Church Street Extension. This is right beside the Operations Center. It's currently zoned general business. It's 1.87 acres. So you can see the annexation process in front of you. It's been through everything, certified by the town clerk. The public hearing for the annexation was scheduled last month, and we are at the public hearing now. Petitioners and adjacent property owners have been notified, and it's been published in the Daily Reflector. So there's your property there outlined in blue. So here's the Holly Grove subdivision, and the operations center there. Laurie Ellis is up here. So just a quick rendition of the map. And that's all I have for you. I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Brian? Okay, we'll open
I
the
got
public.
one question.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
The White House there, right across from our Operations Center, has it been annexed?
No, it's Frank Fields'
Frank Fields.
house.
That's why I'm lining up. I didn't think it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Or is there anyone here to speak in favor of this? Anyone that wants to speak in favor of this? Okay, any that would like to speak against this? Okay.
My name is Doug Killian. I'm Vice Chairman of the Planning and Zoning. I'm not here to speak for or against. I just want to refresh the council on the thought process of the Planning and Zoning Board. At our last meeting, we had the application from the ladies and the builder for a fine subdivision over on Reedy Branch Road. It was very well presented and very appealing. We asked for clarification from staff, Brian, whether we should consider the proposed subdivision under the possible comprehensive land map because it had not been passed. And we were advised we must act on existing comprehensive land map and subdivision laws. And that is the reason I believe that we voted against the subdivision as it did not meet the land use map in effect at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Killian. Anybody else would like to speak against this annexation? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. It's the pleasure of the board.
Move for approval.
Have a motion for approval
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Okay, Brian, if you'll come back up for the next public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. All right, so before you've got a rezoning request for the Janet Hare and Joan Knight's property. So
Excuse
just,
me, Brian,
I'm
could
sorry.
you
I'm
speak?
sorry.
Yeah.
She's looking straight down. Let me try looking at you when I talk.
No, I just wanted to make
Um,
sure everybody could hear you.
So a rezoning request, so the property is located on Reedy Branch Road, south of its intersection with Davenport Farm Road. The applicant is Rocky Russell Development. So you can see the parcel number there. It's 19.74 acres. Current zoning is agricultural residential, and the requested rezoning is going to be R6 with conditions on that. So the reason for the zoning request is to allow development of a subdivision with construction of duplex residences, so that's per the application. Also, the conditions that they've proposed, and I'm gonna read them every one. So it'll be a minimum lot dimensions of 82 foot wide by 110 foot deep. Now, this wasn't part of the application, but I took the liberty of adding that up to make sure we understood it's a 9,000 square foot lot, so that'll be a minimum. The second condition will be 1 and 2 story duplexes. Third, brick or stone will be placed on part of the front elevation with vinyl on sides, rear, front, and partial. 70% of the duplexes will have a single car garage. Number 5, building square footage will not be less than 1,100 square feet per side. And number 6, an HOA will be established, which is required automatically, but their condition would be that the HOA would maintain all the lawns and entrance to the areas of the subdivision. And that does exclude those that would fence in their rear yards. So just some information on our notifications. We sent out adjacent property owners notifications on October 28th, 2019. Public hearings were published in the Daily Reflector on October 30th and November 4th. A notification was posted on the sign way back in August. So an additional notifications were also sent out before the planning and zoning meeting as well. So here's our property here, outlined in blue. So you got Davenport Farm and Reedy Branch Road, Open Door Church here. 4 lines is down here. So here's your rezoning map. So you can see it's just a simple boundary map showing the property to be rezoned or requested rezoning. Current zoning, as stated before, it's agricultural residential. So you see general business here, industrial here, and up around the school is office and industrial, or Pitt Community College. Our existing land use map just shows you exactly what's existing on the ground. So it's kind of hard to see. These colors are a little light, but this it's just vacant. So there's nothing out there with adjacent stuff with open doors, office and institutional. So the majority out here is vacant. So future land use plan. This is the old land use plan. This is the one that they submitted their application under. So we have since approved the new comprehensive land use plan. We'll get to that later. So but under the old future land use plan, this was designated as commercial residential transition. So the commercial residential transition, this category represents undeveloped areas areas that adjoin or are in close proximity to commercial, industrial, and/or office and institutional areas. Properties within this category may be suitable for a wide range of possible land uses, provided that such uses are appropriately located and arranged with respect to one another. So the general intent of this category is to provide for a gradual transition of land uses, placing higher intensity uses along thoroughfares and/or adjacent to existing higher intensity uses and transitioning into lower intensity uses as you proceed away from these areas. So the strategy seeks to prevent incompatibility among adjacent land uses. That's a lot, it's a mouthful, but it's basically saying you're trying to transition from your high intensity to your lower intensity as you get further away from those higher intensity. So if you got the industrial, you kind of go industrial, commercial, residential, kind of just work your way down. So new that would come up, future land use plan, the one we just adopted. So this actually, here's our property here. So the one we just newly adopted is a character area of urban neighborhood. So under urban neighborhood, potential zonings would include R6. So the new land use plan complies with the request as well as the old land use plan per staff. So the only issue with the new land use plan would be, a recommendation that we establish criteria for design, or set a specific design criteria standard for higher intensity uses such as a duplex or a multifamily residential neighborhood. We haven't got to that point yet. So we have to, if we were going with this plan, we would have to make sure you were comfortable with the conditions set forth. However, we are going with the old plan because there's a statutory requirement saying that the developer gets to choose under a permit choice rule which ones they go with. So he applied under the old land use plan, so that's the one we're kind of sticking with. So, all that being said, planning staff finds the request is reasonable and in public interest because the proposed zoning district is compatible with surrounding land uses and the future land use plan. So staff does recommend approval of the request to rezone 19.74 acres from AR to R6 conditional use district. So with that, the Planning and Zoning Board did recommend denial of this request on September 16th. So now the council will hold a public hearing and make a decision therefore. So I'll answer any questions you guys have of me before you open the public hearing.
What size are those two houses in front?
You're talking about the ones that
Present
really,
houses in front of the property, what size lots are they?
I do not have that information. I could look it up real quick. But I would think they're probably, there's no way they're more than a half acre. But I could find that out real quick.
And Brian, just asking a question here. As the board, we could ask for restrictions, what could, as far as like buffers or that, because we don't have that in place now?
So, well, not exactly. So
Okay.
conditional zoning has to be a mutually agreed upon condition. So you couldn't say, we approve it with these conditions. That would have to be something that's worked out between the council and the developer. So it has to be mutually agreeable. So it not necessarily has to be something that he proposes, but if you would propose it and he agrees, vice versa, then it could be worked out that way. But it has to be mutually agreeable.
Okay. So it would actually go back to the planning board?
Not necessarily. I mean, it could be, depending on how the meeting flows, it could be worked out, at the public hearing right now.
Okay.
But you don't want to you run a risk of having a slippery slope there. So I wouldn't try to get too detailed with imposing or trying to get more, because you could bite off more we could chew at this
Well,
point.
let me ask you this, man. What is an overlay district? What is overlay? What that term means?
An overlay district, if we had an overlay district, it would just be an additional, so basically your downtowns or your historic preservations or something like that, they typically have an additional restriction laid on top of the underlying zoning. So just for example, say this part of town happened to be a highway corridor district. So in addition to what your zoning would be, you would have additional requirements that would maybe make you have more right of way, or so it would just be an additional layer of regulation on top of it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Brian? Okay, and we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone in favor of this that would like to speak?
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity tonight. My name is Linwood Stroud with Stroud Engineering, here representing the developer Rocky Russell, and Rocky's here also tonight and will speak probably following me.
Mr. Stroud, do you mind pulling the mic towards
Oh,
you?
I'm sorry.
so
Can
everybody
you hear me now?
Thank you.
First off, just like to reiterate that our proposed development is in compliance with the current land use plan as well as the proposed land use plan. And the conditions that the developer is proposing to place on this rezoning will assure a quality development, particularly the minimum lot width as for a duplex development in an R6 zone, according to the ordinance, is 70 feet, and we're committing to an 82 feet of width The lot size is larger than the minimum lot size in the ordinance, over 9,000 square feet versus 8,000 square feet. In fact, the lot width itself is actually greater than the minimum lot width in an R8 zone. So these are pretty strict conditions that the developer is willing to place on this property, as well as, you know, the appearance of the duplexes that will be built out there with the brick and stone front and that type of thing, 70% garages. So, you know, we feel like this is a good proposal. We feel like it's good for the Winterville. It's something that Winterville needs. And this is the exact type of development that provides a good transition between high-intensity uses and low-intensity uses. This is the type of thing you would want to see in an area like this where you're in a transition zone. So that's all I have to say, unless you have some questions for me.
Any questions for Mr. Stroud?
Mr. Stroud, do you live in the area, sir?
Pardon?
Do you live near that area?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't see any, plans for landscaping other than the lawns. And that was one thing that when we were doing our, land use plan, that was something that, we were advised to do in our development.
You mean land, you're talking about landscaping
Like
for the individual
trees
lots?
and green areas, that kind of thing.
Okay, I can't speak to that. I'll let Mr. Russell speak to that when he comes up.
Any other questions for Mr. Stroud? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Russell?
So Councilman Moore did look up that information. This one's 0.51 acres and the other is 0.59, so roughly between 20 and 25,000 square foot apiece. I don't know what you want. You see it?
Mayor Pro Tem and council members and town manager. My name is Rocky Russell, and I have been a resident of Pitt County since 1979. I am the petitioner for the rezoning request before you tonight. I've been a builder for 25 years and a developer for 19. I, along with my former partner, developed Carroll Crossing, which is located on Laurie Ellis Road, in 2001. I have developed a number of subdivisions in the past 19 years, including the duplex communities of Hampton Creek, which is on Davenport Farm Road, and Fieldstone, which is on Allen Road. I also own a property management company, and my company will be the HOA manager for the proposed neighborhood on Reedy Branch Road. I have agreed to make this a conditional use zoning and have documented a number of conditions that I must adhere to if this zoning request is approved. The proposed duplexes will be primarily one-story homes with single-car garages and a brick or stone front. There will be a homeowner association established, and the HOA will maintain all the yards outside of any fenced-in areas. The yards will be maintained through the collection of dues from the homeowners. The state and city requirements will require me to install a stormwater detention pond, and the HOA will be required to maintain that pond long-term. The duplexes that I propose to build will have a starting price of about $165,000. The square footages will start at about 1,400 square feet and range up to about 1,800 square feet. I believe this price range is underserved in Pitt County and especially in Winterville. The current average list price of homes for sale with a zip code of 28590 is $191,000. That's both new and existing older homes. There are currently 3 new homes under construction below $200,000 with a Winterville mailing address right now. These 3 homes are actually located in the city limits of Greenville, but have a Winterville mailing address. The least expensive new home under construction in the town of Winterville is $208,000 in Brookstone subdivision. Home buyers with combined gross incomes under $75,000 cannot afford these homes. Most first-time home buyers live by themselves and make under this income level. Secondly, many of my historical buyers are young, single, or older empty nesters. The majority of these people don't want a single-family home that comes along with a larger square footage as well as a yard to maintain. If an investor buys one of these duplexes to rent, they will have to charge $1,400 or higher to achieve any kind of reasonable return. A rent price of $1,400 is probably higher than most people's mortgages these days. My property management company currently manages Southridge, which is a duplex community in Winterville. It is a very nice-looking community with an active HOA. When the subdivision was established, the developer did not require the HOA to maintain the yards, but the neighborhood has a large percentage of owner-occupied homes. My property management company does not manage Carroll Crossing, but it remains a very nice community. One of my building superintendents lives in the neighborhood, along with a number of law enforcement officers who work for Winterville, Greenville, Pitt County, and NC Highway Patrol. The parcel before you tonight is located between Davenport Farm and Four Lines Road. From where Reedy Branch Road intersects with Four Lines and PCC, there are only 10 homes along this section of road. Most of the remaining parcels are occupied by heavy commercial, large metal buildings, 2 graveyards, Pitt Community College, and Reedy Branch Church. I used to live in Taberna, which is off of Frog Level Road. I traveled this road several times a day to construction sites that I have in the area. Other than at 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., the traffic in this area is not bad, and I'm sure that planning will confirm that the roads are not anywhere near capacity. NCDOT will be opening up the new bypass in about a week, so we all hope that a lot of the traffic that is leaving the residential areas on Davenport Farm and Four Lines and currently headed toward Memorial will travel toward the bypass. Based on these conditions, I don't believe this development will significantly impact the traffic counts for this area. The planning department has told me my rezoning request is in compliance with the current land use plan for Winterville. It is also in compliance with the new land use plan that was just voted and adopted last month by council. Based on this zoning request being in compliance, I would appreciate your support and will answer any questions that you may have about this request. And this is an example of a home in Fieldstone, and which is on Allen Road, and I plan on building this same type of home in this new neighborhood, if adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Number 5, a question. You said square footage would be 1,400. This statement says 1,100. So
Yeah, they won't be that small. I think I was pretty much copying the Carroll Crossing land use plan, but yeah, I built a few 1,200 square foot houses in Fieldstone, and they're just, per square foot, the numbers were just kind of, they were not great. So I'm planning on, most of, not all of my homes will be probably 3 bedrooms, and that home right there is about 1,480 square feet, so. The market may change, and I may have to build smaller, but yeah, I'm not planning on building that small. But
I did my homework this past weekend, kind of looked at some of your properties. I looked at property that you're building over near Lake Forest with some condominiums
Yes.
over there with single-car garages and all that. And then I also looked at the one where you're talking here, Fieldstone. Very nice properties, well kept up and everything. And so, yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Russell?
The same question about trees and that kind of, that's the only question I have.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Your plan did not include, it said lawns, but it never said anything about trees and other shrubbery.
The entrance will have a berm, most likely. I mean, all subdivisions these days are having berms. And I'm not sure how that will navigate behind the existing homes, but, you know, I don't have an issue with having a berm around the entire front of the community. Everything that faces Reedy Branch Road. And in Fieldstone, as I'm sure Councilman Hines has seen, that I've been planting trees in every yard. I mean, like 1 or 2 trees per yard, but, you know, I don't have an issue with that being a requirement as far as something larger than a bush by the front door.
The side fence that you're speaking of, you're talking about just a private fence for your back patio or something like that?
Yes, sir. In case someone fences in their rear yard, most commercial mowers can't get back there, so most neighborhoods where homeowners, where the HOA cuts the grass, the HOAs are not cutting the grass inside the fenced-in areas because of getting access, things like that, so.
So it won't be nothing in the front part of the resident?
What, I'm sorry?
Will you have a fenced in, you won't have no fence in?
Oh, no, the fences will only be allowed to start at the rear corners of the home and go back.
Brian, I'm assuming we do have a berm requirement for the front, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And also, Brian, this is a question for Brian. Brian, if I'm not mistaken, if he go through, build his, like sidewalks and all that, and that's standard, right, in our,
Yeah, those would be your
Right.
typical requirements
Typical
anyway. So you're gonna
requirements,
have
right.
sidewalks interior, you're gonna have, double frontage lots would require one outside, with the berm. So yeah, that's standard stuff that we would require anyway. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Recreation requirement, any fees, whatever?
Typical, so they could either supply open land that we could dedicate that would have to meet certain requirements, access. Couldn't be a certain amount of floodplain, couldn't be in wetlands, those, it would have to meet those criteria. But if not, they could do the fee in lieu of. It's, don't quote me, but I think it's $1,200 per lot that they develop if they decide to pay the fee in lieu of.
and then also to another question for Rocky, sorry, Mr. Russell, but as far as your postal, everything there's in one location, right? Are you
There'll
gonna
be a
have
central mailbox, yes,
Right,
sir.
are you gonna have a turnout, or is it just gonna be,
That's up to, hit Mr. Stroud's design and
Oh,
what
his design.
Winterville and the post office approves, yeah.
okay,
That's outside my pay grade. so.
okay, all right.
Would you be willing to dedicate land for recreation?
I guess that depends. I don't know the answer to that tonight. I mean, I guess it goes both ways as far as whether or not developers are paying the recreation fee or dedicating land. I'm not sure if I can answer that tonight. I think most of the HOAs that I manage, there's like there's vacant land in the subdivision. And if, depending on what Mr. Stroud and the town work out, it may be a possibility that would be a more practical solution. So I don't know the answer. That's one I do not know the answer to tonight.
Well, if this board recalls, we've had some discussions in regards to preferring the fee instead of the land, because we've had so much land, and to be honest, I mean, most developers aren't giving us a good piece of land. I mean, they're giving us what's left over. So, the fee is something we have talked about moving towards and getting away from them giving us a piece of land. Just to throw that out.
In this new plan that we have, that was one of the recommendations, is that we ask developers to designate our reserved land, because of the fact that right now we have an unbalance in our recreational facilities. And had each developer been required to dedicate land for that, we wouldn't have this none over here and lots over here, with our developments. So that was one of the things we had in this new plan that we had, that we paid almost $100,000 for. So I feel like we should look at the recommendations. But here, we invited these people in to look at our community and make recommendations as to how our community can grow, what would improve the appearance of it. So,
If I may, I think the town attorney and myself could research the statutory language behind that to see what the town could do in terms of requiring one over the other. We may not can do that, but we can certainly, we don't have to.
We don't have to accept the piece that they offer.
I think that's correct.
That's correct. I think it's sort of up to negotiation.
Right.
And if it's
that would
tract of
help.
land that's unusable or we don't see usable, we, go in the other direction. But I'll be glad to look at that further if you'd like.
That would be my suggestion, just for future
Be good.
knowledge.
Thank you.
Again, how many dwellings you proposing?
There'll be approximately 50 duplex lots, depending on the amount of wetland acreage that's in the very back. And we can't do anything with the wetland acreage, but leave it alone.
Parking. You only can park by how many vehicles? It's gonna be about the size of your parking space in front, about one vehicle?
I'm not familiar with Winterville zoning, but in Granville, you have to be able to have 2 cars side by side, as well as almost like double stack 4 cars if need be. But that, obviously, in that plan, there, you could put 4 cars up next to the building. So.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Mr. Russell.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else that would like to speak in favor? Okay,
Do you need the, I was gonna take the, does he need the, do you need the thumb drive? I was gonna get it for you.
Good evening. My name is Katie Hagan-Moore. I've been a Pitt County resident for 20 years now. I have worked in human resources with a largest employer, healthcare, for over 16 and a half years. And I have an avid interest in this development. I am one that lives close to the medical center, and this type of duplex home is of quality and needed for our employees. I can sit here and tell you we have over 600 nurses that will be hired within the next 12 months. That's nurses. That's not everything. So with that being said, I would like to tell you that with those types of clinicians, they don't want to keep up yards. They want an HOA. They want to pay their money and get it done with because they work 24/7. So my avid interest in this is to have somewhere for them to be able to live, be supported, and be in a good school district. And I think you all know what your community brings to that. So that is what I would like to portray to you this evening and let you know that we have an avid interest in that. That doesn't include, physical therapists, occupational therapists, things of that nature, physicians that will be coming to the community. If we do not have something for them to come and live and be supported, then they're not going to come to our community. And I will tell you that it has been a huge struggle from my experience the past 16 years to bring things to Greenville. And if we don't have up and coming things that have these spaces, 1-story options, people not climbing stairs, then they're not going to come here. So I come to you with that in mind. I also come to tell you that on behalf of Mrs. Janet Hare, she's asked for me to give you a letter. She regrets that she cannot be here today. She is the property owner, and I fully support this, so I'd like to read that to you. Thank you for your time and service to our community, Mayor Pro Temp and Council. Due to my work schedule, I was not able to attend tonight's meeting. Please accept this letter outlining my belief that the proposed duplex development would be benefit of the community and follows the town of Winterville's comprehensive land usage plan. The plan of the piece of land that was proposed for rezoning for the development of the duplexes is about 19 acres of Reedy Branch Road. It backs up Swift Creek. Its southern neighbor is Open Door Church. In the north, open farmland currently opened by Jenkins Hares was borders of the crossroads of Davenport Farm Road and Reedy Branch Road. Across this parcel is also farmland by the Dolores Little parcel. Rocky Russell is proposing to build a 4 duplex per acre Winterville comprehension land use plan with characterize these 19 acres as urban neighborhood. Winterville's definition of urban neighborhood is described as medium-sized lots with generally 3 to 8 dwellings per use. Listing price of these duplexes would at least be by $165,000. According to Zillow, the residential market in Winterville is very hot with the median sales of $161,900. These proposed duplexes would be in very high demand. By allowing this rezoning for the duplex development project, you would be following proposed policies and strategies to work out something great for Winterville land use. These duplexes fit well with surrounding areas. It will provide a nice transition from Open Door Church to further things on Reedy Branch Road and Devon Park Farm Road. These duplexes could encourage a local progression of development and extension of utilities and discourage leapfrog development. These duplexes fit well to encourage walkable and/or mixed-use development. The piece of property backs up to Swift Creek, which could become part of the Greenway walking path from PCC, Pitt Community College, to Four Lines Road near Creekside Elementary School. Per Winterville's land use, passive open space in form of natural areas that can help buffer existing development and natural resources from this development. These duplexes meet design criteria that emphasizes agricultural design, quality improvements, landscape standards and amenities, and open space. The Planning and Zoning Board did not vote to rezone this piece of property for the proposed duplexes. My friends at Reedy Branch Church, my cousin whose mother owns the farmland across the parcel, and my neighbors who live in Swift Creek were opposed to this rezoning request. Concerns raised included in the traffic on Reedy Branch Road and Devon Park Farm Road. However, the town of Winterville plan has taken into consideration the requirements for the transportation, water, and sewer. Winterville's plan supports urban neighborhoods in this area with 3 to 4 dwellings per area. Please consider rezoning to allow this duplex by Rocky Russell, and I do believe this community will be an asset to the community, encourage a local progress of development in this area and high-quality design with features that you will not be disappointed in. Respectfully submitted, Janet Hare. Last thing I will say is that on average, my clinicians make $55,000 plus a year. They desire something with a garage. They do not have more than 2 cars, and they are not seeking something where they have to mow the grass. So that's my proposal. Thank you.
Ms. Hagan Moore, could we get that letter? Could we get that forwarded to us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just tell me who to send it to, and I will absolutely do that.
Donald, thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to speak in favor?
I apologize, I sat up here before and talked about the annex, and I was speaking of this. But I can tell you my personal opinion. I think this is a fine subdivision, and it does fit our comprehensive land use plan that we have in effect now. However, the subdivision ordinances have not caught up. And I would ask you, if you're going to accept this rezoning, that you put the stipulation on it that it would meet the guidelines of the comprehensive land use. For example, in high-density areas, the land use suggests 2 sidewalks, one on both sides of the street. It also, as Mrs. Roberson suggested, landscaping. I would just ask that this be included in the developing plan, if you accept it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else that would like to speak in favor? Okay, anyone that would like to speak opposing this?
How you doing? My name is Kevin Little. I represent the James Little Family Limited Partnership and also the H. Jenkins Family LLC. We are opposed to this rezoning because we feel that it is not a good thing for the area. These types of subdivisions do not hold up well as far as they go backwards in a shorter period of time than subdivisions with larger homes, single-family homes. And we would prefer that the homes that the rezoning not be allowed, but when we would prefer larger homes, single-family homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
My name is Graydon Tripp. I own land just on the other side of Kevin Little's James Little Family Partnership. I agree with him that I am opposed to this proposal, that we would much prefer seeing single-family housing with larger lots than the smaller lots that are presented here, and that's mainly the reason I am speaking in opposition to it, and I urge the board to vote against this proposal as it currently stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Judy Bowen, and my family resides at 535 Davenport Farm Road, which is on the other side of the Swift Creek Canal. I do favor what Mr. Kevin said about the single-family homes. I reiterate what Mr. Russell said about the traffic situation. 8 o'clock from 7 to 8:30 is very intense on Davenport Farm Road. On both ends of Davenport Farm Road, I don't even see what's happening at the Reedy Branch area there. His key word was the Southwest Bypass hopes to bring this traffic off of Davenport and Reedy Branch, and that's not a guarantee. I would hope that it would not be accepted at this time until we see what this major thoroughfare is going to do to Reedy Branch and Davenport Farm Road. That is a major concern of mine. I don't object to development, but when I see this, and I think when you said how many vehicles will be going right into that intersection again, it is so close to Reedy Branch, along with Open Door, which is only like 3 days a week. The traffic is just, it's going to be a major issue. And the Southwest Bypass, we are not guaranteed. It may magnify what's going to happen on Davenport and Reedy Branch. So at this time, I oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen.
Sir?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
I have some questions.
Okay.
Okay. To both of the gentlemen, they were saying that they like to see larger lots in single-family homes because they said that traditionally these subdivisions that he's proposing goes backwards. You know, it can go either way, you know, unless you have something to prove that these subdivisions do go backwards. How do we know? This could be magnified to go the other way. Larger subdivisions have a tendency to go other ways as far as rental, you know. So half a dozen either way. As far as traffic, Ms. Bowen, anywhere throughout the county, I sit on the Pitt County Planning Board. Throughout the county, we have issues with traffic throughout. Hopefully the Southwest Bypass will alleviate some of that, but we don't know. You know, right now, any given time during the day, from 4:30 to 6 o'clock, traffic is mayhem in Pitt County, period. You know, so. And looking at development over there, I think it's going to, as far as impact, I stay on the west side of town. I stay off 4 lines, and I understand the traffic. I understand the traffic in the morning, Creekside, understand the traffic, South Central, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Can't make a left turn into my subdivision going into Manchester. So I understand the traffic needs and all that, but that was just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
After hearing from the residents in the area, I do not want to be the person to tell them what is they like and do not like. I want them to make their own opinion, and their opinion is they're against this development, this type. We've only approved one type like this in the last 20 years. I've been on the board. If they want single-family homes, I agree with them. The two sisters are selling the land for one reason. They're not going to live in the area. They want it's about money. If you lived in that neighborhood and you came before this board, would you not want that board to listen to you because you live here? Other people don't live here. The 3 people who spoke in favor do not live in this area. So I make a motion, we deny the request.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to deny. All those in favor, let it be known by lifting your hand. Okay, opposed? Okay, 3-2.
I cannot support this because of the fact, I served on this comprehensive land use plan committee. I devoted time to this, and we looked at our area. We realized we do not have a variety of housing options in our area, and that's something that Winterville should be concerned about. Do our policemen, can they afford the houses? Can the firemen afford the houses? And maybe I represent the people who would live in an area like this, because maybe I can't afford that big house on the big lot. So that's why I support this. As long as the builder was willing to accept the conditions that we set, and he seems to be very willing to do that.
And to Ms. Robinson, I'm going to echo the same thing. We're looking at a community that we're growing here. We've got nice restaurants that we're trying to get here. We just approved 2 breweries, and you're looking at bringing in a kind of a new culture of young and mixed with older, and that's what they're looking for. You can have seniors that like duplexes, just like he said. You don't want a senior to up and get a large yard because they can't take care of it. And then next thing you know, you're going to get complaints from to the town, grass overgrown. But what kind of community? It's a nice community. Just something that we probably going to need to think about. Mr. Moore said, and we haven't improved one over in 20 years. Maybe it's time. That's something that we need to look at. This is a new generation. You got people, like she said, you're going to have 600 employees, possibly, 600 employees possibly coming to your area. We should be able to afford to offer these 600 employees something to help with our tax base, then instead of sending them into the city of Greenville to let them fill their tax base. So think about it. If we want to be economically efficient, we need to think about these things. If we're not, then, hey.
I have one purpose to be on this earth, and that purpose is to follow my father. And Mr. Cox, who is a visionary man who set the rules up for this community of against alcohol. I think I'm ashamed breweries are coming to our community, one beside me. It's only going to lead to more suicides, more alcoholics. That's not good. That's not progress. I have a $125,000 house for sale now for the last 8 months. I've had one person look at the house, and I spent $100,000 renovating. $100,000 I can't sell for $125,000.
All right, thank you, everybody, for your comments. Let's move on to the public comment section. We have one person signed up, and that is Miss Debbie Avery. Miss Avery, I got to read the rules and regulations here, so give me 1 second, and then we will hear what you have to say. The public comment period of 30 minutes provides an opportunity for residents to comment on any item included in the agenda or to address the town council or any other matter related to the town of Winterville. For an item included in the public hearing section of the agenda, residents should address the council at the time the mayor invites public comment on the item. No public comment may be made to the council during the meeting except during the public comment period or as part of a public hearing. Individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and no more than 3 speakers may address the council on a single matter. The town council may elect to take no action on the matter addressed by a speaker, may schedule the matter for further consideration at a future council meeting, or may refer the matter to the town staff disposition. Copies of the town public comment policy are available at the rear of the assembly room. It's all yours.
Thank you. I am Debbie Avery, the director of the Winterville Chamber of Commerce, and I see that tonight you have the brunch bill on the agenda for a possible vote. And so just on behalf of the chamber and many members of the Chamber of Commerce and businesses in the community are looking for a vote in favor of this brunch bill. We're trying to look at Winterville to be a little bit more progressive. Sometimes change is good. We're also looking for a business-friendly community. As we look for new businesses to come into the community, we want them to see that we do things to help the businesses in the area. We don't try to hurt our businesses. Another thing that I've learned about economic development is that you should never do anything in your community to hinder future development. And as we look at that land along Beacon Drive, if we were to ever get a grocery store, a hotel, some new restaurants in that area, the fact that they may not be able to sell alcohol before 12 on Sunday could be the tiny little thing that makes them decide to build in Greenville instead of building in Winterville. So I'm just thinking that this is one more thing to encourage you to vote for the brunch bill so that these businesses have nothing stopping them from coming to the Winterville area. You don't want to see me come back up here in 2 years when we have a restaurant trying to open out there and they want to sell alcohol. So just keep that in mind, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Avery.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We will move on to old business, the Noble Canal Bank stabilization. Dr. Williams.
Evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This item, we're just coming back to report as requested last meeting. Reached out and had contact with representatives from the potential funding sources to just cut to the chase. One of them, the Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant Program, it targets flood damage prevention in floodplain areas. This is not a mapped floodplain area. There's been no significant property loss in that area, therefore it's not qualifying. The third option there, through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation for Resilient Communities, their funding round is not until spring of 2020, and they are not quite sure if they're going to have any money based on budgets. The first option that we talked about, which we have utilized before for some studies, was the Water Resource Project Development Grant. Spoke with the representative there. He indicated that we could submit an application for this project. However, due to its the type of project being just a bank stabilization, that is not their preferred type of project for funding. However, they would consider and review the application. Did not give me a high indication that it would be funded, but they would accept the application, review it based on their established criteria, and include it in their review cycle. So I leave you with that and look for direction with regard to how to proceed with seeking potential funding assistance.
You stated that they said that they do not prefer stabilization. What do they prefer?
They prefer stream restoration type projects, property acquisition type projects for land conservation and preservation of habitat, water access type projects. Now, keeping in mind that they have limited funds, we're talking a few $100,000 to, potentially, I think he got 1.5 million total last fiscal year, of which the majority of that goes towards these restoration projects and water access type projects.
So my question would be then, do we meet any of those criteria that you just spoke of?
We do not meet the typical stream restoration type project. It could, we would apply for it under a stream bank stabilization under the premise that it would eliminate erosion or continued degradation of the feature.
Is it a deadline for the application?
The deadline is December 31st. So what, if council were to direct staff to proceed with application preparation and submittal, we would come back in for the December meeting with an authorizing resolution to submit that application and file it by the deadline.
That's the only two options we have as grants that you came up with?
There were 3 potential funding sources as reported last meeting. This is the one that would entertain possibly funding it.
Well, Mr. Williams, as I stated last meeting, not knowing too much about it, getting some information, I did go out with you and Travis, and I looked at every ditch, I think in Winterville, got my feet wet, cold, and my face cold. So what do we have to do to stop kicking the can down the road on this Noble Canal? Because, I mean, I went and looked, and I grew up in the country. A ditch is a ditch. And it's, by nature, it's gonna erode. I mean, what I saw, what y'all showed me, is just a normal erosion. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but, I played in plenty of ditches. But what I saw is no more than nature taking its course, just like nature's taking its course on me. I'm getting older, and I hope to continue to get older. And a ditch is going to do the same thing. As time go, dirt's going to keep moving.
I think the question is not so much the erosion that's occurring there as it is the effect to the surrounding houses and buildings. That's what has been the problem for the section that is from Mill Street to Chapman Street. The other part of the Nobel Canal was tiled, was it tiled or just pipes put in? I don't know for sure.
So,
Part that's behind Tyson Street.
So upstream from Mill Street, it does go into a piping network. It daylights in a few areas by the park, upper headwaters. But there is erosion along the open daylighted section. But as we toured the ditches around town, there are properties along every ditch that have property in closer proximity to the erosion going on those particular features.
But this section here has been open for a long time, and it's like it was closed up to that by community development grant that went through the area that allowed for the closing in of that. But the concern is from Mill Street to Chapman Street. That's the part that we've been having requests about for, well, before I came on the board, probably when I, old as I am, probably started when I was a young girl. So the best we can do probably is ask that it be a priority in our next budget. Because even if we were to apply for the grants, they would be not be funded till the next year, right?
So the Water Resources would notify of funding approval in the spring of 2020.
And that would be about the time we start with our budget too. So I make a motion that we give priority to stabilizing the area of the Nobel Canal, Highway 11 Mill Street to Chapman Street in our next budget.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to make the Noble Canal a priority in next year's budget,
Yes,
from Mill to
Chapman.
Okay, all those in favor, lift your hand. All those opposed, lift your hand. Okay,
I make a motion that you pursue the grant, December funding grant.
I'll second the motion.
Councilman Moore, you said to pursue the funding
Fund-
option, okay,
That's the grant, yes.
and Ms. Robertson, you
I'll
said.
second.
we have a motion and a second to move forward with submitting the grant. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Any opposed?
Aye.
One opposed?
I will oppose.
All right, 4-1.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. Thank you.
Hope you're successful.
All right, moving on to new business, the proposed ordinance for the reconsideration of the brunch bill. Is anybody speaking on that?
Well, I believe Don has a correction. Or you may have more than that.
I'll be glad to.
Let me turn it over to you.
Okay, what you have in front of you is a draft ordinance. This is based on the original branch bill when it came out about 2 years ago. The state passed the items that are referenced here. Where I have a correction is under section 1, line 2. It says corporate limits of, and Winterville was not included in there. So if you would include that in there. And I would say that the law did allow as early as 10 a.m., but the discussion last month at the meeting was 11 a.m., and that's what's shown in this draft ordinance. So it is before you for your discussion.
Thank you for that clarification, Don. What's the pleasure of the board?
First, I'd like to say a few things about progress. I can't see going in the wrong direction in life progress. Visit prisons like I have. Look at the families that come to my classes on Wednesdays. Look at the families destroyed every day with alcoholic beverages. This is supposed to be a family community. Families want to move here. Drinking does not bring families. It destroys families. It's again, when Mr. Cox planned this community, he said no alcoholic beverages. And then the board somehow changed back when Food Line came. My life has been about saving lives. I will continue this path until the day I die, till my Father takes me home. Drinking and driving. If people, 1.5 beers can say you're at .03, you can go to jail for 5 years at .03, a beer and a half. You have it, they can have it now. The ABC officer came by my business when they first had alcoholic beverages next door. He said, it would never be allowed. Well, it passed, it was allowed. He called me up, I called him up, I said, I thought you were going to Stop. Oh, I was out of town. Then later on, he became a pastor. He wanted me to donate to his buying a bus and then circle right across the country. And I said, "You're the biggest lie I've ever seen. You were around. You were just a bald-faced lie. Maybe you're trying to repent." So I'll make a motion. I don't want to be progressive, not alcoholic beverages, that we not approve this.
Have a motion on the floor to not approve the brunch bill.
I'm gonna second it, and a few comments, can I say something?
Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
I talked to the people that are running the brewery over here, they're not gonna open till 12. The people that were here last time around, they said that they wouldn't open till 11, so we're talking about a difference of an hour. I realize that, you know, maybe it could be an economic development move, but yet and still, I'm looking at it as not being, making a great big difference in our businesses that we have now. So, that's why I'll second your motion, Mr. Moore.
This is the comment section, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And basically, my comment is, again, do you want to be a progressive community? I know times change, and I understand, Mr. Moore, I understand what you're talking about, but there's a lot of things that goes on that hurts families. And alcohol, drugs, there's a fentanyl problem, there's a lot of stuff. You know, we just can't single out one thing. I mean, there's a lot of things that goes on in a household that disrupts a household. Prisons are full of everything, not just people that drink and drive. And you make your money off that. So that's how it is. But I mean, you got some people that want to enjoy these establishments. That's why they're open. And I think as a town, again, I think when people looking to move somewhere, they're looking at these things. Yeah, again, as Ms. Avery stated, economic development, when you get maybe a hotel chain or whatever, restaurants or whatever, they want to come, they're going to look at that, you know. But that's all I have to say.
Mr. Moore, do you want to comment on this?
I like to say that I can't see how it could hinder or help the situation one way or the other, because we already have something in place. The new business that we do have that is asking for this request, I don't see how it's going to help them. One said they're not going to open up until 12, and the other one said they're not going to open until 11. So I don't understand why they're asking for this request.
Well, I think we have it now where they can purchase at 12, and I believe Main and Mill open at 11, if I'm not mistaken. So they are the specific ones.
They are the requesters. They started serving brunch. So the law has historically been you cannot buy alcohol before 12 noon. The law recently changed to allow local jurisdictions to change that if they so chose, to back it up to as early as 10 o'clock. Mill and Main's request was 11 a.m. on Sundays to coincide with their new brunch menu. The breweries were mentioned, but they were not the main requesters of the brunch bill. It was initially, Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, but Mill and Main, and the owner actually came and spoke with you all.
And they are the one that's going to be
Requesting 11.
at 11.
For so a 1 hour to, again, coincide with their brunch business.
And I'll just say that, you know, I've been kind of sitting on the fence. I ain't gonna lose any sleep about it either way. I don't own a restaurant. If I did, I'm sure I would want to be able to serve at 11. I've been in restaurants at 11 and 12, and those places are serving. I don't know that an hour makes a big difference, but I'm going to vote to approve the brunch bill. just because I think it's the right thing to do for our business. I don't want them to have to compete at a disadvantage to places across Fire Tower Road. That's my 2 cents worth. And I've talked to a lot of people. I don't know that most of the people in our community care one way or the other, to be honest with you. I mean, it's 1 hour.
That's right. And they don't.
So anyway, we have got a motion to deny the brunch bill. If you're in favor of that, please raise your hand. And if you're opposed to that, raise your hand. Okay?
I make a motion that we accept the brunch bill at 10.
They wanted 11.
11.
Well, I was going by, what's the statute? Is the statute at 10?
The statute allows you to adopt an ordinance to roll the time back to as early as 10, but then it would be your discretion on whether you want to do 10, 10:30, 11, up to 12 o'clock.
So you
select
can't go
the
any
time.
earlier than 10.
Right, that's what I'm
But
saying.
you can do
So
something.
What
in-
I was saying is follow the statute. That was my motion, is to follow the statute as it's written.
Not that it makes a whole lot of difference, but I would prefer it to be 11.
Okay, well then I changed my motion to 11.
Okay, we've got a motion to allow the brunch bill at 11 a.m.
I second.
Got a second? All those in favor, let it be known by lifting your hand. Okay, and those opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, moving on to other agenda items. I don't think we have any, do we, Terry?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Items for future agendas or work sessions. Any? All right, reports from.
I do.
Okay.
Maybe some board training.
Okay. You have anything specific in mind?
I get back with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's several different kinds. I'm happy
Right.
to try to set up whatever y'all want.
Facilitate some, yes.
Okay, sure.
Okay, reports from department heads. Keep it short. Start on the end. Got anything? Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up.
Gosh.
Evan, are you sure?
Don't do it,
I feel
Evan.
like keep it short was directed
Ben?
at me.
It was.
Brian? Okay. You had your chance. Keen?
I have no specific report, just to remind you what town manager said. We do have a closed session per the statute identified. I don't think it'll take very long. Wish everybody a awesome Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Moore?
Thanks, Chief, for our speaker. Thank you, Chief. I owe you a big thank you. It was a success. Thank you when you came. It was our 20th year. The weather was absolutely perfect. Heard nothing but good reviews on it. I was proud. I'm not a veteran. I am not a veteran. And I tell this story last night to a group. When you have a father who served, as mine did, he went at 16 to serve. They wouldn't let him sign up. He was too young. He went to Raleigh. Went back at 17, he served. And then the day before he died, he was on disability. He said, I cannot afford my medication. He didn't ask me for money. He said, I'm not going to be a hindrance to you. Tell me where you want to be buried. That sticks with you for the next 25 years. And that's why I drive that old 67 car. He was with me that day. That was his car. And he's riding with me now every time I ride in it. And I think about a veteran not having medication that it takes to survive in our society. And I will always work for veterans. I'm ashamed I didn't go. I was in school with the Vietnam War went on. Heard many stories about veterans ashamed of the Vietnam era. Had many friends who drank too much. One of them died last year. He never stopped drinking since the Vietnam War. He had Agent Orange also. It was a terrible war. But thank those who came, those involved, and again, thank you, Chief. And Councilman Smith did a good job filling in for the mayor.
Thank you.
I think Ms. Roberts was there, Hines. We had a good crowd. I'm very pleased.
Thank you, Councilwoman Robertson.
We do thank the Richards for that wonderful Veterans Day program. I need some help with those cords on Board Street. We got people living on Board Street, and if you go by there and look at their driveways, you can see 3, 4, 5 communication cords across there, and they've been down there since the completion of Board Street. We have those little green, I call them green boxes, where they collect that, and they look like someone's taking a hammer or something and beating them to pieces. And it seems to be no response from Southern Link or Central Link as far as that's concerned. The church I go to, the cords are down on the ground. The cords even make corners. So we need something to happen with those cords on the ground. And I do want to say thanks to the citizens of Winterville for my reelection. I do appreciate that vote of confidence.
Thank you, Councilwoman Robertson. Councilman Hines.
Thank you. I almost fell asleep over here. No, I just kidding. But again, too, I like to thank the citizens of Winterville for them taking the time out to reelect me again, and also to the west side of Winterville, especially Manchester, for coming out and voting, and also to the veterans. Veterans Day was November the 11th. But Veterans Day is every day, people. A veteran is a veteran every day. Thank a veteran when you see him. Not just on Veterans Day, but every day, because they gave the ultimate sacrifice. And it's not just on Veterans Day. You should thank them every day.
Councilman Moy.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say, did we ever get to write the letter to the county to see, to the State Department about those states that we have out there on Tar Road?
Yes.
To have those removed? Can they have those states removed from their property?
They can remove them themselves. State's not gonna do it, but Travis reached out to DOT and the response was, well, let me let you.
They're not going to remove, I asked a specific question if they would come remove them for the owners. She said they're not going to remove them, but the property owners can certainly remove them. Because of the project being delayed, they will have to restake everything when they.
I would have already gotten rid of them and they weren't.
Most people have. There's very
Well,
few
few
left.
still have some still left.
I'd be waiting for the town to
And
pick
they sort
'em
of
up.
like hesitating about moving state property.
I think a lot of people are hesitant because the state put them down and they don't want to get in trouble with the state.
Right.
Or with the highway commission, so
Yes,
they
ma'am.
don't touch them. But,
If you talk to folks specifically and they need something more than what you report back to them, they're welcome to call my office. But yes, we have gotten the official word that they can remove them.
can you
Thank
put a note,
Right.
maybe a little note in our newsletter
Yes.
saying you can remove those states?
I mean, they gave us authorization. Why can't we do that?
Because people do. I would, if I lived along Tar Road, especially with some of those states, they're almost to your porch, I would feel uneasy removing them if the state had put them down,
Right.
you know.
And also, I'd like to say, I'd like to thank all the candidates that ran for into our municipality election. And also, I'd like to give an extended congratulations to the ones that is here tonight is our town councilman Moore, town councilman Robinson, and town councilman Hines.
Thank you.
I'd like to say congratulations
Thank you.
to all of you.
Thank you, Councilman Moore. Thank you. I will echo that. Congratulations to you three. A lot of work to be done. Thank you for your service. I would like to thank the Winterville Rowing Club for another great Veterans Day. They did an outstanding job. I'll specifically say thank you to Councilman Moore. We know it's the Rowing Club, but I also know that he does 99% of the work putting that together. So thank you for that. It's a nice program every year that we do here in town, and I hope we can continue that. I had one more thing, but daggone, I forgot what it is. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, Terry. What you got?
I just want to congratulate the council members that are returning. Staff remains excited and ready to work with everyone on all of the things we've got coming up. I wanted to thank staff, for anybody, and I think everybody who saw the Halloween event. I've never seen so many children and so many folks. It was a beautiful day and it was a great event, and it certainly, without the work of these folks and their folks, it certainly wouldn't have happened. Thanks to Evan and his folks for the dedication ceremonies for the two playgrounds in both parks. I thought that was really nice. And there was one more thing. Oh, yes. First of all, my apologies for not being at the event yesterday. I was out of town. I did attend the International City and County Managers Association Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. I had the honor of being on the planning committee for that conference, and to date, it is the largest attended conference in the history of ICMA. So I was there about a week and went to many sessions and did a lot of networking. A lot of the things we're talking about are new methods of travel that you're seeing in cities and towns, how to regulate those. You see the scooters, autonomous cars, which I hope we don't see in Winterville anytime soon. But how to regulate those things, Airbnbs, lots of new regulations that cities and towns are grappling with. A lot of information about managing during not just catastrophic weather events, but mass shootings, things of that nature. Not much. I'll have to say that there are folks, that do allow it, but no specific conversations about anybody doing any really great things with solar that I'm aware of. And I know that's something we talk about on a regular basis, but it was a great conference full of information. Thank you all so much for allowing me to attend and being on the planning committee.
Did you do some country music dancing?
I saw some. I didn't do any. I did do some singing. I'm joking. I didn't do that either.
I didn't want anybody to send us a videotape.
You won't see any one of me. I promise you that. But there's a lot going on in that town, so it was an honor to attend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. Motion to adjourn?
Closed
Motion and a second, and then go into closed session.
Thank you.
Yes.
All those in favor, let it know, saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.